During the 1950s, Americans were searching for something new to bring a sense of joviality and distract them from the anxiety in everyday life. Films were made, music was produced, and different types of art were explored. But pop art left a lasting influence. Its vibrant colors and themes brought feelings of joy and happiness to anyone who encountered it, and challenged people's preconceived notion of what art really is. The growing tension between the United States and the Soviet Union, known as the Cold War, was a defining element of the 1950s. After World War II, Western leaders began to worry that the USSR had what one American diplomat called expansive tendencies. Moreover, they believed that the spread of communism anywhere threatened democracy and capitalism everywhere. As a result, they believed communism needs to be contained by diplomacy, or if it came to it, by threats or by force. Tens of thousands of Americans lost their jobs, as well as their families and friends, in the anti-communist Red Scare of the 1950s. But despite all of that, the country was booming. The United States enjoyed both political and economic growth. Middle-class Americans moved to the suburbs. Elvis Presley led the emergence of rock and roll. Marilyn Monroe was a major film star, and television replaced radio as the dominant media outlet because of the introduction of colored TV. But yet, in the late 1950s, a cultural revolution started to stir. Activists, thinkers, and artists sought to rethink a social order ruled by conformity. The Vietnam War caused mass protest. The Civil Rights Movement sought equality for African Americans, and the women's liberation movement gained momentum.
Basically, after the Depression and the Second World War, suddenly the United States became prosperous. There was a growing middle class, and there was much more to buy, much more advertising. It's really the birth of advertising. So artists started looking at this and taking it and using it in the way that had never been done before.
Because of the Cultural Revolution, a new generation of artists emerged in Britain and America. These artists began to look for inspiration in the world around them, such as everyday items, consumer goods, and mass media. They sought to explore new ways in creating new forms of art by connecting fine art traditions with pop culture elements from television, advertisements, films, and cartoons. These artists created a new artistic movement and named it pop art. Fun facts. The term pop art was first coined by Lawrence Alloway in 1958 to describe artwork by Richard Hamilton, one of the greatest pop artists of the time. The first artwork to incorporate the word pop was produced by Sir Eduardo Paolozzi. I Was a Rich Man's Plaything, 1947. Pop was written in a white, puffy cloud. Pop artists believed everything is interconnected, and therefore sought to make those connections literal in their artwork. The majority of pop artists began their careers in commercial art because of their background in the commercial art world. This trained them so they were able to merge high art and pop culture. By creating paintings or sculptures of mass cultural objects and media stars, the pop art movement aimed to blur the boundaries between high art and low culture. Robert Indiana said, "Pop art is everything art hasn't been for the last 2 decades. It is basically a U-turn to representational visual communication. It is chuck the bomb. It is the American dream, optimistic, generous, and naive."
Well, modern art started with the, back in the 1800s, kind of, and worked all the way up into World War II. Into the pop art line started after that. It's just led from one into another.
So what exactly is the difference between pop art and other art forms? The art historian Robert Rosenbaum said, "The authentic pop artist offers a coincidence of style and subject. That is, he represents mass-produced images and objects by using a style which is also based upon the visual vocabulary of mass production." Through the pop artist, the imagery of mass media appeared as a new American icon, one of coolness and a little warmth. Roy Lichtenstein, when asked what is pop art, said, "The use of commercial subject matter in painting. Pop art is actually industrial painting. My work is industrial. It's what the world will soon become." Andy Warhol, one of the leaders of the movement, adopted the commercial method of silk screening, printing, decorating, or reproducing works of art using a silk screen in many of his works. Sir Eduardo Paolozzi often made collages using cutouts from magazines to show his love for pop culture. What these men did really downplayed the artist's hand and subverted the idea of originality. Andy Warhol said, "Everybody looks alike and acts alike, and we're getting more and more that way." Artists usually associated with pop art on the American East Coast included Andy Warhol, Roy Lichtenstein, James Rosenquist, Tom Lazelman, Claes Oldenburg, Robert Indiana, and Jim Dine. As you can see, there aren't any females in this list because pop art had been completely dominated by men. Pop art was about fast foods, babes, processes such as the silk screen and the bendy dot, and blatant commercial images, all about American banality. Now stop. Remember when I said, "and the women's liberation movement gained momentum"? Well, this movement helped lead to the emergence of the female pop artist. Women artists were unacknowledged, underacknowledged, or maybe forgotten by history, but still inverted the male gaze and anticipated the future, while male pop artists were getting stuck in their own styles. Women's pop-related art had its own intentions. It usually opposed or dissected the male gaze. They were concerned with shifting both the objectifying male gaze and the objectified female gaze. Female artists were willingly or unwittingly involved in a major change in content, context, and medium. Pop art in the hearts and minds of women intricately linked to the rise of feminist art, political, and sociological art. Pauline Bowdy was a well-known personality in the 1960s. By 1963, she had evolved a pop vocabulary in her paintings, using images of celebrities with a celebratory and humorous approach to female sexuality. What women were doing was another kind of art, and to call their work pop does a disservice to it.
Pop art is derived from the word popular. So the artwork is of popular things, of things we're used to seeing. So like Coca-Cola cans and Andy Warhol soup cans and stuff like that. So people relate to items that they see on a regular basis. So that's why I think it's still popular.
The bold, colorful, and often humorous presentation of familiar subjects continues to attract collectors to the genre. Pop art brings the exchange of feeling between joy and sadness in difficult times. Nan Miller of Nan Miller Gallery in New York said, "It is easy to understand why pop art sales are strong. The bright colors give us hope. People are looking for something with a happy, joyous note. Pop art helps give them that lift they need in life."